that's a big area.
Welcome, everybody. So what's the problem?
No problem.
Why are we all here?
Problem is we need a problem to be here.
In spirituality, the dilemma is essentially one of misunderstanding. If in any way your life feels limited or finite or entrapping or stuck or partial, then that means that there's a fundamental misunderstanding of your part of what's going on here. Because in actual fact, it turns out that what's going on here partakes of none of those qualities whatsoever. And we can know this very directly. The fact that that is the case is nakedly revealed in our very experience itself. So, most simply put, all we need to do is be with our experience without preconceptions, and we'll be able to see what it is and discover that it is in fact infinite, it is in fact open-ended, it is in fact indescribable, unanalyzable, ungraspable, and as such cannot pose a problem. You cannot have a negative reaction to something unless you think you know what it is. And thinking you know what it is always going to be an error, because in actual fact it's impossible to know what anything is definitively. It's impossible to get a handle on what's going on, or what anything is, or what anyone is, or what any situation is, or what you are, or what this world is, and so on and so forth. And simply noticing that fact as it actually is, uncontrivedly and unconstructedly, is sufficient to reveal it to be this open-ended, inconceivable, infinite being that it actually is, that you actually are. So then it simply becomes a matter of pragmatics. Well, how do you go about that? What do you do? What's the tricks? And, well, the tricks are any trick that you can stumble on, any trick that your wit can contrive or can employ, can play with. So the fundamental technique is simply to be with this without preconceptions, to be with this open-endedly, not holding it to be this or that, not holding it to be anything in particular, just
this.
What is it? What is it? Well, you can't say, can you? And in that, but that inability to say is not a negativity, even though it's put in negative terms verbally, but it's not nothing. It's very much something. So you can't say what it is, but it's not nothing. It's something. It is something that is beyond categories, that is beyond designation, that is beyond nouns and verbs, that is very real, very actual, very vital, and it is what it is, and you are it, you are here, it is here, that here is one thing, and you are that. It's as simple as that. It is actually as simple as that. Of course, the fine print kicks in when we actually try and engage with this and find ourselves tripping over our subtle preconceptions that we're trying to pretend that we have suspended or let go of. But nonetheless, that is doable. That is a workable situation, because no matter how much you're holding your experience to be something, no matter how elaborated you have a narration about what things are, what you are, what's going on here, all of that elaboration exists in a context of open-endedness. The very context of your thought is non-thought. Thought exists in non-thought.
Hey, did you want to put this on?
Conceptualization exists in a context of non-conceptualization. Definition exists in a context of non-definition. So this openness, this undifferentiatedness, this unspecifiedness is already the case in your experience, in real time, all the time. So you don't need to stop thinking, you don't need to stop defining, you just need to notice the portion of your experience that is not thinking, that is not defining, that is always accessible because it's always right here. And you can go there and see what it is, see what's going on there. And it will not be what you think it is. It will not be anything that you can think. It will not be an object. It will not be graspable. But it is far from nothing. It is real. It is vital. It is nourishing. It is open-ended. And it is what you are. So that's the end of my sermon.
Sermon on the Mount.
So, if anyone would like to discuss any of this, please feel free.
I would.
Yeah.
I would like to talk about self-realization.
Mm-hmm.
Is there an end point to that? Like once one is fully self-realized, if that is possible, does one cross the threshold of no return, or is it just an ongoing recognition of I'm not even sure what I'm asking. Okay, I've been noticing other people. Okay, like for example, Byron Katie. I sat with her for many years. And it seems that, and Tony Parsons and others, Eckhart Tolle, and now you. It seems that they have something that I don't, or that you have something that I think I don't.
Mm-hmm.
That you've crossed some threshold. Others have crossed that threshold of no return. I haven't, because I still struggle, I still suffer, I still... Yeah. I guess that's my question. Is there an end point to this?
There's an end of suffering, but there's no end to revelation. And the end of suffering consists of the realization that there's no end to revelation. To a large extent, the mechanism by which we torment ourselves and think we don't get it is because we haven't reached any sort of finality.
Right.
And that fallacy that there is a finality to reach is a carrot on a string that keeps us locked in this loop of I haven't got it yet.
Right.
Because if I had it, I'd have it.
Right.
And in actual fact, realization consists of, most fundamentally, of the direct, self-verifying, obvious, real-time revelation that there is nothing to get.
Mm.
And yet this endless revelation persists forever. That's what this consists of. This is an endless unfoldment of infinity into infinity. Infinity is what's perceiving this experience, infinity is what's being perceived, and it endlessly unfolds, never repeating, never delineatable, never specifiable or limited, always just infinite shades and harmonics and nuances of meaning and astoundingness. Always has been. That's what your experience has always been. Right? So the idea that so the idea that you don't get it is sort of reinforced by the other side of the coin that there is something to get that you haven't got.
Right, the thought that I have not, that I don't get it.
That there's an it that you don't have.
Right.
There's a carrot on the end of the string and you don't have it in your hand, so you haven't got it.
Right.
What if there's no carrot?
What if there's nothing to get?
What if there's nothing to get?
Wow. So that's just chasing my tail. There's no, it's not really...
And all all
so hard for me to get that.
all living, all
Go ahead.
living within the context of
Say that
conceptual,
again?
all living within the context of conceptualization is essentially chasing your tail, because these concepts define supposed entities into existence. You know, you have success, you have failure, you have love, you have all these entities that verbally, theoretically exist, and you look at your life and you say, well, gosh, you know, where are these things in my life? You know? Do I have love? Do I have success? You know, or am I a failure? And am I, you know, confused and depressed? All these different things. But it turns out that the problem is the circular logic of defining these things into existence and then relating to those definitions as if they were actualities. In actual fact, no word or idea has a real correlate in reality. No word refers to anything actual. That's a strong statement, and I mean it very literally.
Very strong.
I mean it very precisely. So anything you can name does not actually exist as such in terms of the way the word is defined.
Oh, that's a relief.
Yeah, so where does that leave you? I mean, look at that. If that was the case, what are the implications of that?
Yeah.
It's very simple.
Hell.
We define these problems into existence by creating this really complex game structure that's implicit in our semantic system.
You're almost way over my head intellectually. I'm getting it on some level, but I'm not that smart.
Well, this is. I mean,
Truly.
it sounds intellectual in terms of the way it's being put,
Right.
but I'm talking very, very simply. In other words, you know, verbally, this is a cup. And so my relationship to this cup is verbally is predicated on what a cup is.
Right.
In actuality, this is not a cup. This is an inconceivable presence of an astounding palette of qualities and dimensions and experiences. I mean, how many different ways could I experience this object? You know?
So you're saying
And what percentage of them have anything to do with cupness? You know, cup. The relevancy of the idea of cup to this object pales and pales and pales and pales. The more experience I have of what this is. This is not a cup. It is an experience. What is experience? It's a presence of consciousness with strange, constantly evolving, never repeating energies, mysteriously appearing and disappearing within it. So this is like a movie. This is like War and Peace. This is like, you know. It's a never-ending unfoldment of newness.
So nothing is what it appears to be?
Nothing is what you think it is. It is what it appears to be, but you're not noticing the actual appearance if you're just hooked on your narrative.
The narrative that's a cup.
Yes.
Wow. So it's so much more than that. It's like the landscape is bigger than the...
Yeah. Experience does not consist of nouns. Experience does not consist of verbs. You know, nouns and verbs constrict experience down to these little stick figures that supposedly interact according to the noun that they are and the verb that supposedly they're enacting, right? But reality is not like that. Experience is this astounding open-ended flow, and you can never get a handle on the characteristics that are actually present in any moment. I mean, what's happening right here, right now? You could say, well, there's a bunch of people sitting in a room talking. And that's not untrue, but does that capture the detail and nuance of your experience right now?
No.
It doesn't even scratch the surface. It's an absurdity.
Not even close.
And you could write a book about what's happening in the moment, and it would be equally just scratching the surface. So just notice what experience actually is, and it will obviously reveal itself as this inconceivable, open-ended mystery that is just astounding, and yet very obvious, very accessible, and that no narration can possibly capture accurately. It can indicate it very obliquely and very, very partially. I mean, I can say, I'm holding a cup and there's chai in the cup. That's not untrue.
Right.
But that this is a cup and that this is chai and that I'm holding it is so oversimplified. It's so incredibly oversimplified in the face of this never-ending unfoldment of newness that my actual experience consists of. I mean, think of the fact that you have never experienced the same thing twice. You know, you can say verbally, well, I've seen like
The
I've seen
ocean.
the 8 colors. You know, every day I see 8 colors, and everything I see is in my vision is more or less one of the 8 colors. You know, but you have never seen this exact shade ever before in your life, and now it's already different because the nuance with which you're perceiving it, the shift of the light, the shift of your eyes, what you're thinking of, all is this constant morphing. There's a universe of color just in this one cup, and from moment to moment it's different than it was in the last moment in terms experientially, right? So your actual experience is this infinite unfolding of newness, and then you say, I'm just looking at the same cup I was looking at a minute ago. You know, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
But that's a narrative that does not apply to the actual experience in terms of what it actually is, in terms of the nuance, in terms of the subtlety, in terms of how it actually is working. And we get numbed and hypnotized into settling for this semantic dullness that we use to try and illustrate our experience. And when we forget, we don't notice it just doesn't apply, how much it misses the mark.
So not to fall prey to the narrative, and to see more of the abstract, of really just.
Yeah, and it's not abstract, that's what's actually concrete. The narrative is what's abstract. No, it's fine, but the narrative is an abstraction. Experience is concrete. What you're seeing, you're really seeing. This is really here.
I'm seeing.
But you can't say what it is. Anything you would say about it is not the experience of the vision.
I see. Now,
So the vision is concrete,
yes.
and then you abstract out of that a narrative or a description.
The absence of the narrative,
Yeah.
and then you have this.
Yeah. Look up, and what is
What
and
is
then there's
this?
just this.
So what is
What
this?
is this? That is the question. What is this?
Wow.
It's that simple. You know, I mean, it may sound complex, it may sound intellectual in terms of deconstructing it and all this elaboration,
Yes.
but it's a simple fact of, here this is. What is it?
It's a big wow.
It's a big wow. It's a big wow.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a big wow. That pretty much sums it up.
You know, I'm going to forget all this as usual. And
It's
yet-
cool.
and
It's
that's-
not going anywhere. It doesn't matter.
This is thank you.
Yeah, of course.
So, as you may be aware, 2 days ago was Valentine's Day. Did that pass through your consciousness that Valentine's Day was 2 days ago?
I've heard that statement, yeah.
Okay, I mean, I got it, okay. But, so, I've had this experience throughout my life called being in love. And it's, it seems, you know, everyone has it differently, but I'll just describe it the way it works in me, in the sense like, I feel genuinely loving towards Peter Brown. And he's providing an evening, he has integrity, every time I meet him he presents me new interesting theories, and I've never had an in-love experience with you. I mean, I notice I'm not attached, I don't miss you, it's just sort of like a loving experience occurs. And now, twice this year I've already had this in-love experience, so I seem to be in a stage. I notice that all of a sudden I go into a whole different experience in the sense that immediately what comes up, I mean, it sounds amusing, but it happens to be true, is all the negativity in my personality. I mean, and you'd think the in love would bring out the noble side, but I notice it brings out the possessiveness, the desire to control another person. I mean, it's like all sorts of shadow sides, and it's combined with some sense that this other person is really not separate than who I am. And that's, you know, so there's like all this vulnerability, because all of a sudden reciprocation becomes very important. Like, let's say if you don't reciprocate my loving feeling, well, that's sort of interesting, but it almost doesn't concern me. It's just, but all of a sudden, if when I'm in love, it's not reciprocated, I notice I go into all sorts of altered emotional states and upset and sadness. And anyway, I just did. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on and on, but I wonder if you'd have anything to say about this particular form of experience called in love.
Well, it's a mystery, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like any experience is.
Right.
And most fundamentally, if you look closely, you'll probably be able to notice that the actual experience in terms of its dimensionality far exceeds your description of it.
Well, yeah, and yeah, I mean, I agree.
And so therefore it includes elements that your description doesn't necessarily address.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just hit a few elements, and
Yeah,
I just didn't
of course.
know how receptive you were to it, in the sense that I know some people on the spiritual path just put it down and see it as just delusional, and, so I didn't feel like going on and on.
Good.
If you were.
No, I'm not criticizing the detail of your narrative. I'm pointing out that any narrative, no matter how detailed, I mean, you could go on for a month on exhaustively in volumes on this particular
Right.
theme, and there would still be elements that weren't addressed because of, like in the previous conversation, because experience, for example, is let's say continuums or spectrums, whereas the words we use to describe it come in these differentiated chunks, with nouns and verbs and so on and so forth.
Right.
So right away there's a mismatch, an inherent mismatch in the way we're describing it. And the point of this is to illustrate that our experience is profoundly multidimensional. So even when you're not in love in what you might be defining as a relationship, there are still elements present that might be present in a situation where you are calling in love, and vice versa. When you are in love, there may be elements present that you're not, but they aren't particularly in the forefront, say you're not emphasizing, that might, like you say, your shadow stuff or other things that are wholly not in the context of being in love. And the point of this being to note the value of noticing the multidimensionality of our experience. Things are, there's not a simple condition of being in love or not being in love.
Right.
There's not a simple condition.
Spectrum. Yeah.
It's a spectrum. It's a continuum. And by noticing this, we discover a richness and a multidimensionality and a lack of entrapment, which can be very liberating, and can be nourishing as well, because we can find all sorts of qualities that we may not be really acknowledging in terms of what we're sort of explicitly noticing about a situation.
Now, is a key word in your way of looking at spirituality disidentification? In other words, many people on this Advaita Vedanta path talk about breaking the identification with the body or the mind or spiritual path. Is that
no, because identification happens in the context of disidentification. Identification is not ubiquitous.
Right.
Identification happens in an environment of non-identification, just like thought happens in an environment of non-thought. And it's the mind's natural tendency to go towards identification, to go towards thinking, to go towards analysis. And yet it's doing so in a context of non-thinking, non-identification, and non-analysis. So that is also present, and acknowledging that it's like an island. Hawaii is an island, but Hawaii is in the middle of the sea, and Hawaii is the sea is as much a part of the phenomena of Hawaii as Hawaii is a part of the phenomena of the sea. And to look at just Hawaii and ignore the sea is to miss the context. And likewise, thought occurs in this open expanse of mental space or whatever. We don't really have accurate words for it. That is wholly non-thought, and yet not really other than thought. So again, we're talking continuums, we're talking multidimensionality spectrums.
And do you have any perceptions around shadow elements? Like just to give an example, my strongest shadow is to be controlling. Not to, of course it has to be the way I relate to myself, but then when I'm in this in-love space, all of a sudden I notice the controlling energy moves out of my own personality into wanting to control someone else. So that's like, what could I say? That's a shadow side. How would you suggest looking at these shadow elements that arise?
Well, again, notice that these shadow elements are not really shadow elements. They're just they're arbitrarily defined as such, and they're just aspects of this vast spectrum of energies
Right.
that you are.
But people seem to almost universally react negatively to that energy. That's why I call it shadow, in the sense that if I tried to control you and run your life now, my own guess is you wouldn't look upon that too favorably. You'd say, what the fuck is he trying to do? You know, I mean, it would be really weird to you, right, if I was trying to control you.
It would be about you. It wouldn't be about me.
Yeah, but
So I mean, I wouldn't have much reaction to it. I mean,
I
you wouldn't have much of a handle to be able to control
I
me.
see.
If you wanted to control me, it's like if you like me or you dislike me. That's about you. It's not about me.
That was very
Just 100%, yeah.
Yeah. So.
But somehow in this in love state, it gets a little confused sometimes.
Yeah. But again, I think a lot of this comes from the semantic over differentiation of in love, not in love, shadow, non-shadow, controlling, non-controlling. I mean, if you have controlling energies in you, they're probably always present to a degree, whether or not
That's true.
whether or not you're saying they're coming up or not coming up.
They just come up strong.
You have loving qualities that are always present, whether or not they're sort of the tide is coming in or going out, and so on and so forth.
Sure.
So we have this vast spectrum of energies within our experience that ultimately are us, and we can't deny them. We can't turn them off. We can't turn them on. They're just there, and they surge and they do this dance like with tides, and they seem to come out more or less in different situations and all of that. And this is just, I think this is pretty much common experience of it.
Right. So the main thing I'm getting from what you say is it just seems there's no judgment in you of any of this. I mean, you don't have the good-bad spectrum going. So it's just like
there's no such thing. The only quality is, and then isn't. There is no isn't.
right, right,
So if is good, then there's no bad.
right. So it's all right and there's no wrong.
Well, yeah, it's all is, and so yeah, if you want to define is equals right, that's fine.
Yeah. Or you could say, what do you think of this line from Byron Katie? She often says, God is everything, everything is good. Is that the same
I have no
spirit?
argument with that.
Right. Same spirit as it's the isness. It's
What is, and then if the question may arise, well, what do you do about it? And that's another question, and that.
well, what do you do?
And again, what you do, what you do.
You do what you do. So you
Right?
You be is, right?
I mean, what most humans do about things is fumble through them pathetically, arguably, say. Or whatever.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Besides just the narrative, it seems like there's a gap between my perception and the reality. It's, that as soon as I perceive anything, there's so many choices, there's so many ways to go with it. And there's a struggle. There's
Right.
a struggle. It's like the mind is, in this process, the mind is trying to see itself. The mind is trying to get out of it. It's trying to do something.
Right.
First of all, it's trying to figure out what it's trying to do.
Right. Yeah.
And
I think if you look closely, you might notice there is actually a subtle narrative even in that, because you're holding, you're looking at something to see what to do with it or to see what it is, and that what to do with it when there's a range of choices or a range of possibilities is kind of quantized into this or this or this or this or this, and each of those thises is an idea, is a narrative, and what this is not an idea. And it is a continuum of inconceivable qualities. It's like a number line. I don't know. Did you study any mathematics in school? So like, well, it's a spectrum. It's a continuum. It's like if you look at a rainbow and say, well, there's 8 colors there. Red, yellow, blah 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 blah. There's not 8 colors. There's infinite colors there. There's infinite differentiation, and in between any 2 colors you pick, there's an infinity of colors in there too. So there's just this vast continuum, and we're not used to dealing with continuums because we've been hypnotized into dealing with differentiation. It's either this or it's that. There's no shades of gray. Where in actuality, in our experience, there's nothing but shades of gray. And we don't have the semantic tools to deal with that, because we are so subtly conditioned to breaking things down to narrative, to interpretation, to, well, this is this and that's that. What is this? You know? And even if we're not doing it consciously or verbally in our minds, we're doing it subconsciously by taking things as either or, this or that. Where in actuality, things are a continuum. So what presents itself as a situation in your life is actually like a symphony. It's just this continuum of vibes and qualities, and just incredibly dense and rich with variety and qualities. And your reaction to it, likewise, is a symphony of reactions. And you know, you can say, well, what's my reaction to this? Well, you can't even say. You know, you like some of it, you hate some of it, you want some of it, you don't want some of it, you're confused by some of it, you're finding clarity in some of it, and you know, so even that is sort of taking discrete chunks out. Are you following me?
Well, I'm following it by not following the narrative. I mean, I'm trying to allow more space and less narrative, and as you're talking, I'm hearing the sounds of your voice, I'm hearing, I'm seeing the shape of your, and everything dissolves and it becomes very soft, and it becomes like a symphony, and it's beautiful, and the more I dissolve into it, the more it becomes not anything in particular, and it's more beautiful.
But you don't lose anything by doing that, because it's all still completely here. And the chunks that we're used to imposing on it with our narrative and with our definitions are imaginary anyway. So there's we're well rid of them.
It's a relief, and it's a much more beautiful space.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. I mean, I do that a lot, but
cool.
It's not
me too.
All of that doesn't get things done.
Yeah, but it's not an either or, because this perceiving this space of continuum of the symphony, you can still think. You can still say, oh, the phone's ringing, I gotta go answer it. Or the phone's ringing, I don't want to answer it. But the symphony doesn't go away when you're thinking. This continuum, this spectrum, this rainbow of experience doesn't go away when you're thinking. It doesn't go away when you're paying the bills. It doesn't go away when you're figuring out the taxes. All of that happens in the context of this.
Yeah, see, I tighten to do the bills. I do
but
some kind of restricting and
but that's cool. But the tightening happens in this. The tightening doesn't make this go away. When there's a tightening, your field of vision doesn't vanish, does it?
well, sometimes then the sun sparkles on the pen, and there's a moment of infinite beauty in the sparkle. And
and the sun's sparkling on the pen when you're not noticing it, and you could notice it any moment. The symphony is always right here. It doesn't go away. Even if you're not paying attention to it, it hasn't gone anywhere. And not paying attention to it is one of the notes in the symphony. It's not an either or. It's not that you can have it or not have it. Not having it is one of the themes, one of the major themes in the symphony.
It's not a problem.
It's not a problem. It's just an aspect of this inconceivability, this undescribability. This zooming in we do, this focus and obsessiveness. How does that happen? How can consciousness do that? I mean, it's a miracle. It's inconceivable. So that very event of focusing in and supposedly losing the big picture is not a loss of anything. It's an aspect of the big picture, absolutely inconceivable, absolutely miraculous, absolutely transient, and it itself reveals unconceivability, and it instantly morphs into something else, as all experience continually does. Experience is never fixed. It's a constant morphing. It's like traveling through hyperspace, and you're never in the same configuration in 2 consecutive instants. Forever.
It's mind-blowing.
Look at this is just your actual experience, and like it always has been. It's just a matter of noticing that is the case. This is not creating something new. This is just simply noticing what has always been the case, but is usually not acknowledged, because, as a culture and as a media, as a cultural narrative and conditioning, we're all sucked into the consensus version of things, more or less.
So sucked into the suckiness of it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
But the
it's just
suckiness of it is very, very partial.
it's part of it, right? It's
Yeah, of
part
course it
It's
is.
part of the continuum. It's
Of
just,
course.
It's not exclusive. It's included in it.
Of course. Look at it. I mean, look at it. Pain is included
But
in
I'm
this.
a black and white person.
Sure,
Seems to be.
Yeah. But look, try and find any actual black and white in your experience. Try and
I'm
find
not
it.
finding it now. I mean,
Try and find it ever. If you don't put it there, can you find it? In this spectrum, in this symphony, how can you find an either or?
can't.
Well, I mean, try, keep trying. Look and see that you can't. Prove to yourself that you can't.
Oh, that I
That's
didn't-
powerful.
That I didn't do.
Well,
It's
you
like
know,
an
it's early days yet.
automatic response. You know, so try to prove it to me.
Prove to yourself. You know, say I can't.
Give me
Prove to
an
yourself that you never can. Prove to yourself that you can never find a hard either or. There's always more. There's never this versus that mutually exclusive. Doesn't exist. There's this. And the this and the imputed this and the that exist in the context of this, which is a spectrum, which is a continuum, which is a symphony.
I'll take a look.
Yeah, play with it. It's very powerful. If you can prove that to yourself, that is extremely empowering. When you discover that it's impossible to depart from the continuum.
Black and white seems to be very disempowering.
It does, but it doesn't exist. You imagine it. You imagine it into existence.
It's imaginary.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah, it is good to know. But it's good to see the
It's
fact
good
of
to
it.
really realize it.
Yeah, realize
It's
it.
one thing to say, oh, I know it, because I'm so quick to saying, I know it just to please you, or my mind is so quick to acknowledge that I don't really fully integrate it as an experience.
Yeah, you've got to look at your own experience and find these things for yourself.
That's
Hearing someone say it is entertaining and possibly gives you a little zing, but it's useless.
exactly.
The point is to look and see for yourself what your experience is, what is going on here.
That's very useful.
And it's simple. It's a lot simpler than you might think. I mean, there's all these spiritual paths and terminologies and practices, and it's dizzying, you know, and it just seems like this astounding edifice. And you know, the Buddhists say, 100,000 lifetimes maybe you'll be worthy to begin to get a clue. But right here, right now,
It's not easy.
this is present. Just look and see what it is. You know, and it's not what you think it is.
Yeah.
It's that simple. And
Well, it seems,
you can discover that fact for yourself very, very simply.
it seems to happen when I'm not thinking. When all of a sudden this suspension of thought happens, then this amazing world opens up, some sort of vista.
Yeah.
That it's a glimpses.
Sure.
You seem to be, I don't know what you seem to be. I seem to have more. What happened to you?
Well, that's irrelevant to you. What I would
It's
suggest
irrelevant
is,
to me, yeah.
see, when you're not thinking, you get these glimpses of openness.
Exactly.
When you are thinking,
Yeah, that's right.
look and see if the thinking happens in the context of the same openness. The openness doesn't go away just because you're thinking. In other words, you may not be noticing it or paying attention to it,
Right.
but it doesn't go away. You're looking out the window and looking at the sky going, wow, the sky's incredible, the clouds are beautiful. And you see somebody walking down the street that pisses you off or something, and you look at them and think, God, the sky doesn't go away just because you're looking down.
Okay, so let me talk about an experience. Let me talk about real. Like I experience severe depressive episodes where I go into. I've been told it's a thing called bipolar. I don't know if you know that's true, but I go into severe depressive, debilitating cycles, and in that cycle, I totally forget all this. It's inaccessible.
Right.
And so, what would you say to that? I mean, it's a deep, dark hole. I forget that I even. It's like Michael's gone. There's no me. I just am completely at a loss.
Right.
But it's not a loss like a good thing.
Right.
It's terrible. I mean, it's I suffer.
Right, I hear you.
really suffer. I mean, Celeste can, my friend can. I mean, it's really it's hell.
Mm-hmm.
And even it's not. I'm not in it now,
Mm-hmm.
but I.
Okay, I hear you.
So what do I do? Like, I don't. It doesn't even occur to me to maybe even pick up the phone and call you, or call a friend and say. I mean,
Yeah, I understand.
do you?
Yeah, I think so.
Have you had depression like
I
that?
certainly have had depression. I don't know that it's exactly what you're describing. I
Okay.
don't know that I was never diagnosed as bipolar, but
I don't know.
but I don't know that maybe I won't be. Who knows? Depends what shrink you go to. I guess.
So what
But-
would you say to this?
Well, I would say a couple things. First of all, the time to go to the openness is when you can.
When you can.
So you find yourself in a moment of not thought, or you see a beautiful sunset, or the light sparkling on a window or something, and you go, that's like, hit on that,
Yes.
because it's there, use it,
Right.
okay? When you can't, don't worry about it, let go of it, because it will come again. And when it comes again, hit on it, be with it. And don't just hit on it gently like, oh, gosh, that's pretty, but really like, just let go and be with this.
Like now.
Yeah, like now, sure. And this is cumulative. Every time you do that, it's like building a brick into your mechanism of being able to. It's cumulative. It adds on itself. Every time you go to that, it will be easier the next time you go to that. But sooner or later you'll be drifting off it. You'll get obsessed with something. You'll have an emotion. You'll get distracted. And when that happens, just let it go. Don't beat yourself up. Don't try to cling to it. Don't try to oh no, I'm losing it. I got to go back and get it, because that's self-defeating. Because that energizes the obsessive
It's just pain on me.
logic. Yeah, it energizes the obsessive grasping logic, which is what creates the moving away from it in the first place.
Right.
So be with it when it shows up. Really, I mean, just be with it. Just let go and just be with it. It is. You are. The it is and the you are the same is. Just be there. Okay. And then, like I say, it'll drift away. You'll drift off. Cool. Let it go. You're just wafting off in the ozone, and you'll go wherever you're going to go, and maybe you'll go into a depression and whatever. But sooner or later, this openness will be there again. And again, just be with it. And it sounds, it may be more or less efficient depending upon how stuck you are in your shit, in terms of getting dragged through your cycles.
Right.
But still in all, in the long run, every time you go to this, it's cumulative. And it's powerful.
So if that's the case, and it is cumulative, and that becomes my experience,
Mm-hmm.
as it is now,
Mm-hmm.
is it possible that cumulativeness could wipe out at some point this disabling
Certainly.
and crippling?
Yeah, certainly. Because subliminally,
I'd like to believe that.
yeah, subliminally, the depression is based on an unconscious idea or some kind of a way you're holding things to be.
Yeah.
You're somehow inside yourself, you're coming down on yourself, or coming down on your life, or coming down on something.
Whatever.
Even if it's not explicit and you don't even know it, you're doing it, there's still some way you're holding it to be. And every time you're with this openness, it reveals that there is no way to hold it to be. You can't say what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's powerful. It wipes the blackboard clean. Because words can't stick on it. It's like trying to stick a Post-it on the sky. It's just not going to take. And so that's why this is so powerful, because as you very gradually acclimatize yourself, however gradually you do, acclimatize yourself to this quality of experience, the validity of these subtle semantic concepts, the way you're holding things to be, holding yourself to be, that are the basis of your punishing yourself and the basis of your judgment of things and all this, will just get more and more ghostly, become less and less relevant, because you'll really get it, energetically, experientially, that there's nothing really there.
Even if it is something organic, like it's possible that
Yeah,
the
sure.
HIV, I've been told it may be in my brain, and even if it's even if it's HIV related, there's some
Yeah,
X-ray images show
No, I understand.
something.
I understand. But
Could I?
but
could
you,
I-
but
could
we,
it even heal that? I mean,
well,
I mean, this
it
is-
may or may not heal that.
Right.
But it can transform your experience of it. In other words, you may still have these energetic experiences, but
Right.
you may not experience them as depression per se anymore.
Okay.
You may experience them as an interesting flavor of experience.
Or dementia,
Yeah, whatever.
because it seems that when I'm in this, I can't even find a word.
Sure, yeah, it can be
It's like,
dementia.
well,
It can
in that
be
case,
yeah.
in that case, I'm doomed. That's my thinking. See.
Yeah, but doomed again is a concept. What does doomed mean? We're all doomed. You know, but what does it mean? You know, it's like it's a mystery.
Yeah.
No one knows what it means.
So,
So to hold it as a boogeyman is to think you know what it is, and that's arrogant as hell because you don't. It's a mystery.
I know.
You don't know what it is. And when you're in this openness, you can see very nakedly and directly that you don't know what it is. So that piece is just taken off the game board.
So dementia, depression, no depression. It's all still relative meaning.
Exactly,
Did
exactly.
I hit the on the head?
Yeah, exactly. And,
It
and,
seems like-
and this
no.
becomes more and more self-evident when you experience your actual experience, which is the actual context of your experience. It's omnipresent. And in that context, in that quality of experience, all of these ways of interpreting things just are invalid. They aren't true.
Mm.
And that doesn't mean experience doesn't have qualities. There's just there's amazing qualities. It's this ongoing symphony, and there's tides, and things come in and things go out, and there's high energy and there's low energy, and there's, you know, just flavors and colors, and I mean nonstop. It's not like there's any stasis, but it's not anything in particular. There's no basis for assessing this is good and this is bad.
I see.
This I'm winning. I'm winning this. I'm losing this. That's all a subtle sort of a conceptual holding.
Okay.
Because you have a belief somewhere in you that things are a certain way, and then you're reacting to that belief.
Yes. Yes.
And the actual
Yes.
fact, the naked fact, is you cannot know what anything is. You cannot know, and you get that fact drilled into you by being in this actual present openness of experience.
Yes.
Because it's self-evident that you cannot say what this is. You can't know what it is. This right here, not some fancy abstract thing. Just this very presence right here is inconceivable.
Mm.
That's simple fact. And it's always inconceivable. It's not like it's inconceivable when you're in some spiritual event and some guy's talking to you. It's always, what is it? You know, damned if I know. I certainly can't say. But here it is.
It happens. Yeah. So you say questioning my beliefs, questioning.
Yeah, I don't recommend that.
That doesn't always.
I don't recommend that. I don't recommend tackling it directly, because questioning the beliefs is entering into that logical system that maintains the beliefs.
So it's another belief.
Yeah. Well, you're fighting with a belief which empowers them. You're saying they matter. What I'm suggesting is completely sidestep them.
Okay.
Leave them behind. Here's your beliefs. What's over here? And then go over here, and you aren't tackling your beliefs. You're just completely sidestepping them. You're going out the back door.
Yeah.
Just to open experience.
That's happening. Yes.
Yeah. And when you go to that, the context of belief is revealed. The shallowness of belief is revealed.
The truth.
And so you're pulling the plug on the beliefs sort of obliquely, without tackling them, without addressing them. You're just leaving them.
Because it's never been my way to analyze my beliefs. Like the Katie work is so valuable, but it doesn't really do it for me
Yeah.
fully.
No,
It's a great tool, but I find when I'm in this crazy place, if I just say to myself, who would I be without this belief? Something shifts.
right.
Just even, but to analyze it doesn't work. I don't have an analytical mind.
Cool, but you don't need it. This is much easier.
I think that because I don't have that analytical capacity, I'm not going to get it. Whatever that I think I need to get.
Yeah.
It works for you, and it's beautiful, but.
And again, analysis is itself conceptual. So you're empowering conceptuality by going to analysis. Whereas if you just sidestep it altogether and go to non-conceptual experience,
But isn't that superficial? I mean,
On the contrary, the conceptuality is superficial. Experience is profound. Experience is real. It's actual. Experience is reality. Concepts are fantasies. Concepts are meaningless. Concepts do not actually apply to reality. They're insanity. They're literally insanity. You're thinking things exist that don't, which is a pretty much, I think, a garden variety definition of insanity. It's like if I thought I was Napoleon and I wasn't, you might say I was nuts. You know, you think you're you, and you think you live in a world that's X, Y, Z, and you think your life consists of X, Y, Z. None of those are true. So it's insanity to think that, to believe it. What's actually true is this.
I was going to say, what is true? Just
this right here. This is true. What is present is real.
This before, it's just this.
Yeah.
Seems, yeah.
Self-evident. It's always been this. It's never been anything other than this. Before you knew what it is, when you were 1 year old and couldn't speak, it was still just this. Nothing's been added to it. So what good do all these words do?
Well, I'm going to forget them anyway, so.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, you go to sleep, you forget them. You know, you get distracted, you forget them. You get stoned, you forget them. It's like, but this never goes away.
This has been very helpful.
Well, I'm glad. That's
And we'll
good.
see.
But play with it, you know.
I didn't think we had chemistry, and I like that this is happening because I was feeling like you could never reach me, or I could never really get you, whatever I think.
Well, it's not about me. It's about you. It's about your experience.
I'm glad that you. That's good for me to remember that because I'm so quick to go over there,
Yeah, sure.
and then I miss this,
Yeah.
whatever this is.
Yeah.
And so it's all kind of new, all the spiritual stuff and meditation, all these teachers, all the books. Suddenly, it's like I don't care about that anymore.
Yeah.
I can't. I'm not even.
But you don't need all that shit. Just this. Here you are. Here this is, and you can't say what it is. And when you say what it is, you're just like scratching the tiny little pieces of it. And that's the simple, obvious fact. It's always true, always self-evident. Just be in that.
So,
Which you are. You can't not be in that.
So when the bills are due and the panic sets in, it's hard to remember the beauty of it all.
Yeah, but don't worry about it. When you get distracted and the bills are ready and you start freaking out, you're freaking out. But the beauty, well, you'll go to the beauty again. It'll come back because it hasn't gone anywhere.
Because nothing bad really could ever happen. I mean,
No, of course not. The worst that's going to happen is you're going to die, and that's a certainty anyway. So it's not like you're going to win that race.
nature had us by the balls.
Yeah, we're goners. We're all goners. So don't worry about that. That's a constant equation. But look at this richness.
Wow.
Look at this lusciousness that is right here, completely present. You don't even need to do anything to be with it. You can't not be with it. I mean, try to not be with this symphony of your full field of experience. You can't do it. You can't turn it off. You go to sleep and it's still there. You start dreaming, it's still there. And you can never say what it is.
But it seems that it would be a lot easier with economic security. Because when you add insecurity to the equation, it all goes away from me.
Yeah, but it doesn't really. See, that's more of your
That's more of my belief
craziness.
system. Yeah, that's more the insanity.
Yeah.
I believe that.
When you don't have any
that
money,
causes depression.
yeah, you don't have any money, you're homeless.
Suicidal thoughts, it's hopeless,
Yeah.
you know?
If you don't have any money, you're homeless, you're out on the street.
Yeah.
Is your field of vision any less full? Is your field of mentality any less full? Is your field of touch any less full? Your entire experience, the symphony, is still completely playing. And whether you qualify it as homeless or living in a mansion, it's still, you haven't added or subtracted anything to the actual full field of your experience.
That's yet to be seen.
But
No,
look and see. Let's take a simple thing.
Well,
Take your field of vision.
Okay,
Okay? Here's your field of vision. It's full, right? I mean, it goes from one end to the other, let's say.
right now,
Yeah,
there's no
Okay.
beginning or end.
right. So that's
Now-
always,
now-
anytime you open up your eyes, that's the case. Now when you close your eyes, lo and behold, wow, that's still the case. There's still a full field of vision, although it's sort of filled with little sparklies and little nebulous, cloudy bits of what all. You can't say what any of that is, but it's still all there.
I like it better.
Yeah, cool. Well, you can have it any time.
Okay, and then, the rent is due.
And does your field of
And
vision go away?
There's no money to pay the rent.
Right. And what happens to your field of vision then?
I don't know.
Well, look and see. Next time the rent's due, look and see if you're seeing. or if it's like all of a sudden it goes, oh, and all of a sudden you're blind.
That's usually the case. Like,
Is it really? I mean, the bills are due and you need to pee. Can you see to get up out of the chair and go find your way to the bathroom? So you can see. Field of vision doesn't ever actually go away. You know, you may be obsessed in worrying about the money and the bills and blah, blah, blah.
That's
Okay,
right.
cool. That obsession is happening
right?
where it's happening, but your field of vision is here and it's going on, and that the fact that that's happening or not does not
Interfere.
affect the presence of your field of vision.
Okay. So how will that generate cash?
Huh? We're not talking about generating cash here.
You know, well, I am. Okay, I'm not trying.
No, no.
I actually don't want to interject humor
No, humor's cool too.
because
Not a
because I'm
problem.
very funny, and that doesn't generate cash.
Yeah,
You know?
but you have whatever facilities you have to generate cash. You have some money. I mean, you have clothing. You managed to get over
Social
here.
Security, disability.
Okay, cool. That's
Section
facility.
8 housing,
That's okay, but that's facility.
Transporting patients to medical appointments.
Sure, but you've
But then I'm always short.
but you've hooked up with that. You're doing that.
Right.
That's some degree of functionality. You eat. I mean, you're
That's
not.
very distracting. Excuse me, and I love you both.
You're not skin and bones. You eat. You're clothed. So there is money. I mean, you may not be wealthy, but there's some degree of money.
There is.
And even if you were homeless and out on the street, there'd still be some degree of money. You know, you'd be panhandling or robbing people or whatever, and you'd
More like
get across.
robbing. More like robbing.
Yeah, whatever. You get a crust of bread every now and then. You know.
Yeah.
So
I get your point.
There's always some degree of functionality, and it's
True.
water finds its own level. Some of us are going to be Bill Gateses, and some of us are going to be just scraping by. But that doesn't, and that's a fact to the extent that it is. But that fact occurs as it does within this fullness of your field of experience. And this is what we're talking about, of noticing this fullness and how the fullness doesn't get any fuller when you have money, and it doesn't get any emptier when you don't.
Okay. That's just, yes.
And the fullness is right here. It is you. The fullness is here. You are here. That here-ness is it. It is you. It just is. The here-ness is.
In spite of.
Always. Because whatever's happening happens in the here. You know, and you are that. Very simply. But you can't find a you other than that, so.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Peter, I wrote this down. Right.
Is this being recorded?
Yeah.
So I can go to it's gonna be
Yeah.
posted, right?
Yeah, it'll be on my website for download.
Fantastic.
And there's a video of it that'll probably be available at archives too.
That's fantastic. You do that. You do put it on.
Yeah, free downloads, MP3s off my website.
Fantastic.
I liked what you said. What is, and there is no isn't.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, that's like pretty much it.
Yeah, I think so. Kind of.
I mean, really, that's like just so great.
Well, it's powerful because it's so obvious and self-evident, but it goes so contrary to our normal, sort of consensus reality bullshit psychosis that we're all totally brainwashed in from our human upbringing and our human culture that we live in, and all the media bombardment and all this endless stream of words that are constantly thrown at us. But this is, and it never isn't. It can look like anything, mind you, but it always is, and it's always full.
Yeah. I had this experience the last, I don't know, maybe several months or so, where I started to get stoned.
Mm-hmm.
And what really, because I had done it years and years, and it just sort of showed up, and it happens, right? And what happened though was that there was this very fundamental core belief that was like would just when I would get stoned. I think just because there wasn't that constriction of concepts.
Mm-hmm.
It was something to the fact of like I'm completely fucking up.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Fucking up. Like it was
Right.
like intense.
Uh-huh.
But yet it was kind of seen through.
Right.
Right? So it was sort of like there lurking, but yet it was being experienced directly.
So you're talking not in the context of just getting stoned, but just sort of a blanket statement about your life. You mean you're talking
just,
about?
well, it seemed that it's been. I think it's always been there.
Uh-huh.
And then when I started to get stoned,
Right. You just saw it became more obvious.
it just became so obvious.
Sure.
And I think that what also became obvious was just sort of everything you're saying, how absurd that one fundamental belief that colors everything you're looking through.
Mm-hmm.
That I saw at the core of everything was being perceived
Mm-hmm.
was colored that way. And it was a complete, it's a lie.
Yeah, of course it is.
So then I see that every single concept I could ever possibly imagine is absolutely a lie.
Right. Simple fact. And very obvious once you notice it. It's just
It's
so
obvious, although
self-evident.
some of them are still, I can see, but it's like I see it. It's very fascinating.
It's astounding. This whole mechanism is astounding. How do we get sucked into all of this belief that is so self-evidently absurd? You know, it's amazing.
It's like we got everything backwards.
Yeah, yeah.
Literally
Yeah,
backwards.
yeah.
You know?
Oh.
So anyway, but thank you for that though. What is. There is no isn't. I mean, it's just like thank you. That's all I just wanted to
Kind of comprehensive.
So, you know, the desire, getting stoned, what I've noticed lately, it seems that there's like, I don't know, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's it. No analysis necessary.
It is what it is until it's not.
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, that'd be great.
Half and half or something.
No, just decaf. Thanks very much.
What about the path of negation, like I am not?
I am not. I am a fish.
Or neti.
It's a statement. It's a statement, but what exactly does it apply to?
Well, that on some level, I guess that everything exists also will not exist a moment later.
But does anything exist?
Well, it seems that there's an appearance that exists.
There's an appearance, but is an appearance, in what way does the appearance exist? I mean, take the example of a dream. A dream definitely appears, but is there anything that's there? I mean, it's subtle. I'm not saying it is or it isn't. I'm saying it might not be a simple thing that you can easily pin down. A dream certainly is, but is it anything? You know, and damned if I know. I don't think words. I think it's a subtler thing than words and ideas can really pin down. But likewise with this, you know, this is, but is it anything? You know, well, I don't know. I don't know. But that I don't know, that's a negative statement. But verbally, semantically, But this itself is an extreme positivity in its presence, in its multidimensionality, and all the qualities that are present. You know, even though verbally, put it in negative terms, there are no negativities here whatsoever. This is very positive. It very much is itself. It very much is present as it is. Thanks so much.
But we wake up from a dream, and we say, you know, you have a sense that you dreamt, but you wake up.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Sure.
so in a sense, when you're saying to look at that in the same way that this is what it is, and yet it's not what it's not necessarily it's how we interpret it.
Yeah.
So when we wake up from a dream, we have an interpretation, but we know that it's not that.
Right. Yeah.
So
exactly.
it's the same in a sense.
Yeah, of course. A dream is a mystery no more or no less than this is a mystery. And waking up from a dream may be very much like when we go to sleep from this, it may be like waking up from a dream. When you go to sleep, where does this world go?
Right?
You don't even know it's gone anywhere necessarily. You don't even know it was here. You're gone. What's up with that? You know, this is as it is, but you can't pin that down. It's subtle, isn't it? I mean, it's weird. You know, it's nuanced.
And what about the self-fulfilling prophecy of any fear or any? I mean, I work as a psychotherapist, so I watch endlessly how clients hook on to beliefs and then they create them. Like, I'm cursed, and then they bring all sorts of curses into their life. So what's going on there?
Well, what is? I mean, ultimately, of course, it's mysterious, but again, it's, you know, specifically, it's a mechanism of thinking you know what something is and then reacting to that fantasy
And creating it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you create it in the first place by holding it to even be there. You know, I'm afraid of some situation in my life or some person in my life.
Or whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Just some condition. And what I'm afraid of is the fantasy that I'm holding in my imagination of that. And so I'm a crazy person. I'm reacting to something that is not actual. The actuality of abandonment is not the same as my fantasy of it. And the actuality will not provoke the same reaction that the fantasy does. Like being afraid of death. Most people are more or less afraid of death. They aren't afraid of death, they're afraid of their fantasy of death. Mm-hmm. No one knows what death is. How can you be afraid of an unknown? What the hell is death? You know, I mean, we'll find out, arguably. But if you're afraid of it, you're not afraid of death, you're afraid of your fantasy of death. And abandonment and all these other things, or being afraid of success, or being afraid of being loved, or being afraid of not being loved, and, you know, all this stuff. It's not about actual conditions. It's about fantasies, these little semantic fixations that people have, where we have the arrogance, you know, the well-intentioned, naive arrogance to think we can know what anything is, and then react to that supposed knowledge. You know.
Right. So would you say that in love state is the same? That you're not really in love with the other person? It's some fantasy?
Ultimately, yes. Ultimately, yes. The true condition is one of openness and inclusion, always, which could be certainly described as love. You know, in actuality, everyone that's present in your experience is equally present. And if you, with a whole symphony of qualities, people aren't necessarily present in the same way, right? Everyone is their own whole symphony, unique, and metamorphosing and blah blah blah, right? But everyone is equally present, and that's the fact. So there's always openness, there's always inclusion. But when we start segregating and picking and choosing and fixating and all of this, it's ultimately going to be based on the same sort of a mechanism.
Well, if I made you my guru tonight, wouldn't that be the same?
Yeah,
like
totally.
G-U-R-U.
Yeah, it's a complete fantasy.
Right.
I am what I am, and I'm not anything. I'm not a guru. I'm not a guru. I'm not. You know, we can't. Who knows? We can't pin down what I am any more than we can pin down what anything is. So all of these formalized relationships are essentially fantasy.
The moment we name something.
Yeah. Well, even before that, when we subliminally incline towards thinking we know what anything is, which may not be a conscious naming. But it's the same. I mean, it's the same thing.
So you really know nothing. Is that why you're sitting up there? Because we think we may know something, and you really know nothing, so you get to sit up there.
Anyone can sit up here.
No, but you really know nothing, right?
Well, I know what this is.
Which is nothing.
Well, it's not nothing.
It's not
But it's not something. It's it. It is exactly itself. But I don't hold it to be anything other than what it is.
But isn't it more no thing than something?
No.
No.
It's not. Neither of those apply at all. It's not nothing and it's not something. It is
The middle path.
itself. Well, it's itself. It's not even middle. It's D, none of the above. But again, we put it in negative terms, but this itself is not a negativity. It's an absolute positivity. It absolutely is what it is, to the extent isness is even meaningful.
So in your view, nothing negative has ever happened.
Correct.
So let's say the hardest satsang I ever was at, there was a man named Tony Parsons who was 9/11/01, and everyone is into horror, and he just says he's seeing just the lover and the beloved, and you would give the same sort of satsang. You wouldn't see negativity as planes are going into the World Trade Center.
Of course not. And the fanatics who were doing that thought it was a moment of glory. They were celebrating.
I know.
You know, and Islamic fanatics everywhere are people who were looking at the horror of of capitalist imperialism, were you know, tooting their horns, going, yeah, went for the little guy. So it depends on your perspective, and it's also and any perspective is just spin doctoring.
Right.
No perspective is true,
Right.
right? So it's a horrible thing, all these lives lost, and these people with heedlessly taking these innocent women and children, you know, damage to property, you know. I mean, like that's a nice, meaningful story. Or oh God, you know, it was so great. They struck a blow for these little people against this horrible oppression. You know, how many people tortured and suffering and dying because of this capitalist oppression and this heavy-handed imperialism of manipulating these you know, third world countries. And I mean, another nice story. How many nice stories can you come up with for any event? As many as you want. Are any of them true? Are any of them comprehensive? You know?
So you don't argue with reality?
Yeah, what's the point? Who's going to win?
Well, that's good. Yeah, I'm not there yet, but I don't ever win when I argue.
Well, there you go.
You are precious. I think so. Oh, wow.
No, we're
But did you at one point in your evolution,
Did I what?
did you at one point during your humanhood,
a perspective here, Michael.
Did I ever what?
Did you ever argue with reality?
Oh,
Like,
certainly.
you're like, fuck this, I hate
Oh
this,
yeah, I
it's
hated
wrong.
the world, I hated myself, I hated life, I hated humanity, I hated, you know, I was a pretty much equal opportunity hater.
All right.
Still do.
So,
But it's just a crook of my personality. I don't take it very seriously.
So you notice that you don't take it serious,
Yeah,
but it's
sure.
like a tendency that you notice?
Sure.
Well, that's human of you.
Well, I'm a human being.
And at some point something happened to you, right? Something you
Well, I
crossed.
saw what
happened?
this
happened?
is.
What precipitated? What brought you to that place where you saw?
Well, it's a
what
long
this
story,
is?
and it's not important. It's not really relevant.
So the short version, just a little.
But it's not relevant. It's
I
not
know,
important.
you
I mean, it's
see-
just entertainment.
More entertainment. But
And there's no
something
point.
did happen at some point. It was a boom, right?
I discovered what this is. I discovered what I am. And it was not a new event because I discovered what I had always been, and I discovered what this always has been.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm inviting you to do and
I
trying
see.
to
Rediscover.
facilitate that to whatever extent that's even possible, which is more spin doctoring.
Like rediscovery.
Yeah, sure. yeah, it is rediscovery in a way. You knew what this is when you were 1 week old. You knew exactly what this is.
I did.
You didn't have any bullshit in your head whatsoever. It's just.
I was 4 years old, I remember, and I was just awestruck at the stars.
Yeah.
Not even knowing there were stars.
Yeah.
And that went away fast.
But it hasn't gone anywhere.
Yeah.
It has not gone anywhere. It's just had added stuff added to it, but the background hasn't gone anywhere.
Well, it went away when I said, I was looking up, I remember I was a little boy, and I was looking up, I had had my hand in my father's hand, and I said, "What's that?" And he said, "Those are stars." And then, that was the beginning of like, well, that's not really fun.
Yeah, stars is boring. It's just a word.
Yeah.
But look at that.
Yeah, it was like, wow.
Because that's not stars. You can't say what it is.
Boring, wow.
You were lied to.
So that just.
You were lied to. They told you those are stars.
Yeah.
It's not stars. This is not a room. These are not people. This is not a world.
This is not.
And anyone that tells you that is lying to you.
So
You can't say what this is. But here you don't need to say, because here it is. Can't say what you are, but you don't need to say, because here you are. Self-evident fact.
So I've never really been depressed.
Of course not.
Just a
But you have been. You've had astounding, inconceivable energies of experience present in your consciousness. Nothing but, always, every instant of the day.
Calling it something.
Yeah, and calling it something just sets up a feedback loop of reacting to it as if it was something, and then you're sort of spiraling down into stuckness, which exists only as a fantasy of narration.
I'm glad this is on tape. This is good.
Good. Good is good, I guess.
I don't have to take you with me,
but this is right here. It's just about this. It's not about anything abstract. It's just about this supreme concreteness that's present, and noticing how amazing it is, which doesn't take very much effort because it's so obviously, inconceivably amazing. I mean, what is color? What is light? What is thought? What is sound? You can't say. It's just this amazing presence of what? Of an absolute mystery. And how is it present? What's consciousness? I mean, Jesus, talk about a mindfuck. That's just like, how is this, what is this consciousness that everything's appearing in, and what is this everything that's appearing in the consciousness? It's so obvious that you cannot answer those questions.
Why do we spend lifetimes missing the mark? It seems so.
Because we are well-intentioned and we're naive, and we've been sucked into a wrong alley of semantically related to our lives, and most of us never have the wherewithal or the good fortune to even notice that we've done so. We just think, boy, life sucks, doesn't it?
So we were told lies.
Yeah, we were told lies.
And
We were sold a bill of
now
goods.
we're undoing that.
You have the opportunity to undo that at any moment, because reality is always present, and reality is not a lie. This is not a lie. This is really here.
But then I hear you say that you don't really exist, so there seems to be a contradiction.
No, it's not. It's not that you don't exist. It's that what exists is not a
Existence is
you.
happening.
Yeah, existence is. Is.
It's not personal.
Well, is. It's as personal as it is, and it's impersonal as it is, and all of a sudden personal and impersonal turn out to be irrelevant. Right?
I see.
I mean, there's no is unless you're there, so it's personal.
Okay, I see.
But there's no you unless there's an is there, so it's impersonal. I mean, it's,
It's inclusive.
Yeah.
I get that.
So we split this as personal and impersonal as if it's meaningful, but it's just more semantic bullshit. There's no such thing. If there's a here, you're here, aren't you?
Yeah.
And if there's a you here, there's a here, isn't there? So where's this personal and impersonal thing? It's a crock. It's a crock. It's hot air. It's more words that refer to absolutely nothing. The here is, which refers to your consciousness, refers to the universe, refers to all, the entire encyclopedia of meanings. All of that is just about here.
So I dream you up, you dream me up, but there's no, so really, there's no you or me, and there is?
Sure, you can say that, but that's taking it too far. You know, it's just here, and you are here, and this is here, and here is here, and be with the here. And don't worry about you and a me and a dreaming up and you know that's more fairy tales.
It sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting, and it may or may not be true, and it's trippy to think about, but it's irrelevant because it's just more stories. And any story is a wrong story. Any story is essentially a lie. Not necessarily maliciously, but in terms of not referring to anything actual.
That's it.
Could I pass one formulation by you? I have a teacher named Paul Renz who defines consciousness as anything that comes into the mind or the five senses. And he once made a formulation that who we are is prior to consciousness, beyond consciousness, and most importantly, in spite of consciousness. In other words, if we look to any of this, you know, the five senses of the mind to find out who we are, we're going to be missing. Does that make any sense to you?
No.
In other words, you think you can find what you want in consciousness itself?
I think differentiating is an absurdity. Talking about some consciousness and some non-consciousness. Okay, this is here. Please indicate me consciousness. Please indicate me prior to consciousness. Please indicate me anything. There's no such thing as consciousness. There's this. There's no such thing as prior to consciousness. There's this. And if there was a prior to consciousness, it would be this. And if there was a consciousness, it would be this. Because this is what is. And this includes things that you may categorize as you. It includes things you may categorize as not you. But it is this here, fundamentally, which includes everything.
So much for Carl Rentz.
He also says.
What to do?
He also, he also says the giant like is be that which you cannot not be.
Yeah, sure. But that's a tautology. You don't even need to say it.
Well, when you say it though, there is I find just this kind of resting into this.
Yeah. I mean, there's all these tricks and all of these cute sayings that are nice, have a nice Koanish way of dropping you off the cliff. You know, and that's fun, and those are useful tricks. But the point is not the tricks themselves, but what they indicate.
Right.
What they, what they tend to lead you towards noticing. Which again is just this right here. It's not something.
So you're finding everything you want in the present moment.
I find everything I don't want in the present moment too. The present moment is an equal opportunity container.
But is there preferences in the moment?
Sure, there's everything, there's anything. There's preferences, there's likes, there's dislikes, there's, there's everything. Anything that is designatable, of course, is findable here, because if it wasn't findable here, there's no point even considering it. But what you find here vastly transcends the simplistic notion of the designation. In other words, preferences, if you think you know what preferences are, you're wrong. Preferences are here, but preferences aren't actually preferences. Preferences are an inconceivable, let's say erroneously and oversimplistically, an inconceivable energy flow of infinity within infinity. So, I mean, you could say, oh, there's preferences. Okay, cool. So you've given it the name as if you have the slightest clue what a preference is. How does a preference happen? What on earth is a preference? Your head will explode if you really look at that nakedly. We talk about these things as if we had even the vaguest clue what they actually were. We talk about thought. What the hell is thought? How does thought happen? What's it made of? Where does it happen? I mean, you know, it's stupefying. It's absolutely numbing to really try and sort that out, to try and get a handle on it.
Sure.
The only thing you can find is inconceivable mystery. And I don't mean that as just poetic hyperbole. I mean literally inconceivable mystery.
Sure.
And what are you going to say about that? Well, it's inconceivable in mystery, so you're probably not a whole lot that's very relevant, right?
So the same teacher, Carl Renz, likes to call me a corpse. Or not a corpse, then a phantom. If not a phantom, then dead. What do you think of that way of looking at me?
I don't know. You're as dead as you are, I guess.
You see me as somewhat alive.
I don't see the
You
distinction
don't
as
see
relevant.
phantoms. I mean, these are all phantoms because we're not separate individuals. It's just, you know, it's sort of like the metaphor of.
But it's not qualifiable that simply. To say we're not separate individuals doesn't mean we aren't separate individuals. It means we're as much separate individuals as we ever were. But what is actually a separate individual? What is actually a separate island? What is actually a separate planet? A separate planet is a name for a portion of a solar system. A solar system is a name for a portion of a galaxy. A galaxy is a name for a portion of a local galaxy group. So when you talk about a planet, you're talking about a local galaxy group, in actuality. When you talk about an individual person, I'm talking about the universe, because you are inextricable from your environment, right? I mean, you are the heads and the tails is the not you. And it comes with. I can't take you and lift you out of your context. You wouldn't exist without your context. So you are everything. Without not also being very specifically you. Right? So it's not that we're not individuals. We're absolutely individuals, but there's no way you can possibly say what that means. What it means to be an individual, again, is an inconceivable mystery.
So we're left always with inconceivable mysteries.
Yes. Well, just one.
Can't I have two?
You can have as many as you want, but you can have two, but they turn out to be one, and that's a mystery too. So. Very mysterious how that happens. We have another minute. Anyone have anything that wasn't brought up that they'd like to get it at the last minute and touch on? We've covered a lot of ground tonight. Or not. We've thrown a lot of ground away.